The return of Parliament this week following the summer break. First on the agenda, a major statement from the Prime Minister on the present situation in Iraq and where Britain stands in all the work it's doing there. A subject that naturally led to a packed House of Commons.
Our strategy in Iraq as a government has been, first, political reconciliation, to work to bring together the political groupings in Basra and across Iraq. Secondly, security, to ensure the security of the Iraqi people and the new Iraqi democracy is properly safeguarded, as well as the security of our own armed forces. And thirdly, economic reconstruction, to work for an economy in Iraq where people have a stake in the future. And our strategy is founded on the UN mandate renewed last November in UN Security Resolution 1723. And whatever disagreements there have been against our decision to go to war, there can be little disagreement about the unanimous United Nations position affirming the right of the Iraqi people freely to determine their own political future and calling upon, and I quote, the international community, particularly countries in the region and Iraqi's neighbours, to support the Iraqi people in the pursuit of peace, stability, security, democracy and prosperity. So let me affirm, as I told Prime Minister Maliki last week and as I've agreed with President Bush and our other allies, we will meet our obligations, honour our commitments and discharge our duties to the international community and to the people of Iraq. Now, the future depends, first of all, upon sustained progress on political reconciliation. That's why when I met Prime Minister Maliki and Vice President Hashimi in Baghdad last week, I said it was vital, and they agreed, that the 3+1 leadership group of the Prime Minister and President's Council meet now to take the political process forward, that key legislation be passed on sharing oil revenues, the constitutional review and provincial elections, that the government reaches out to disaffected groups as well as decide on next steps on detainees, and that the local elections go ahead in early 2008, making provincial councils far more representative. And our message to the government of Iraq and to the leaders of all Iraqi communities and parties is that they must make the long-term decisions needed to achieve reconciliation. Mr. Speaker, the support of Iraqi's neighbours, including a commitment to prevent financing and support for militias and insurgent terrorist groups, is also critical to ensuring political reconciliation and security. And I urge all nations to implement the International Compact to renew Iraqi's economy, to participate in the Neighbours Conference to boost cooperation and surmount divisions in the region, to support the enhanced UN mission in Iraq, and I renew our call that I believe will be supported in all quarters of this House, that Iran and Syria play a far more constructive role by halting the support for terrorists and for armed groups operating in Iraq, by continuing to improve border security and arresting and detaining foreign fighters trying to reach Iraq.
He then turned to the issue of UK forces in Basra and their future roles there.
The next important stage in delivering our strategy is to hand over security to the Iraqs, and it is to move from a combat role to the rest of Basra Promise to Overwatch, which will itself have two distinct stages. In the first, the British forces that remain in Iraq will have the following tasks: training and mentoring the Iraqi army and police force, securing supply routes and policing the Iran-Iraq border, and the ability to come to the assistance of the Iraqi security forces when called upon. Then in the spring of next year, and guided as always by the advice of military commanders, we plan to move to a second stage of Overwatch, where the coalition would maintain a more limited re-intervention capacity and where the main focus will be on training and mentoring.
Reconstruction and reconciliation were the key for the future.
We are building a democracy in Iraq free of Saddam Hussein. We are engaged now in political reconciliation and economic reconstruction. The situation I saw on the ground in Basra is of a reduction of violence that makes it possible for provincial elections to be held and for economic reconstruction to yield results. And I would hope that even if he disagreed with us on the decision to go to war, he will agree with us now that we must combine the political reconciliation we are pushing for, the economic reconstruction that we are financing, and the security measures I have announced to make it possible for the Iraqi democracy to play its full part in the region and in the world.
Unlike some, I've never tried to hide the fact that I